Hello, and welcome to Read the World. My name is Derek Main, and I review translated literature. Before we get into today's review, right now it is Saturday evening, March 14th. I'm in Apex, North Carolina, in Wake County, America, and our lives have changed. They've changed drastically. Of course, that's across the whole world. I don't have anything terribly urgent to say about this and how it affects those around the world in varying situations in different countries and different levels of access to care. I will just say that as we all learn about social distancing and isolation and we form ourselves to that new reality, things like this I think are going to be important. And I know I'm going to be watching a lot of BookTube. I'm going to be reading a lot, crossword puzzles, regular puzzles, of course spending time with my wife and kids who are home with me for the foreseeable future. So I'll be doing some of these videos that are later at night, finding time sort of where I can. But I'm still going to keep reading translated literature and reporting to you about, providing some reviews. Hopefully it's some sort of distraction. I plan maybe in the first couple of minutes of a review, just like now, maybe I'll give a quick life update, but for the most part, I think you know what's going on, and there's no need. There's so many other sources where you can kind of find that out, but we're doing fine. We're so blessed and so lucky, beyond our wildest imagination, to weather something like this. But there are drastic changes to our world as a family, and of course our world on the whole. And so it's never a better time to read. It's never a better time to dive into the human condition. And I'm actually excited that the first book that I'm going to review in this new normal is quite different than what I normally read. So this is Beautiful by Massimo Cuomo, translated from the Italian by Will Schutt, and it is a Europa Editions. Pretty good. Like 250, about 280 pages. A nice little novel. I'd gone on a little thin novella run there for a while. The reason it's different is I read so much dark literature. I think that so much literary fiction is in the darker side of the human condition, or maybe it's the times we live in, or just what I'm attracted to. And this has a lot of darkness, so I shouldn't. But it's also, as the title suggests, beautiful. And so I don't remember how this came on my radar. I thought it was Agnes from behind the epilogue, but I looked back at her anticipated reads list and didn't see it. So maybe it wasn't her, but someone posted, maybe Books in Bayo, how do you say that? Will Heath, I think is his name. But one of those, I thought, or someone else, posted sort of in December, these are books I'm looking forward to in 2020. And there was two that really caught my attention, and I pre-ordered them. And so this one was the first one to come out, Beautiful. Otherwise, I haven't seen it anywhere. I haven't seen it on Twitter. I haven't seen people talking about it. So kind of interesting. And I'll say that it's not like as highbrow literary as stuff I normally read. So, or that sounded so pretentious. I'm sorry. It doesn't necessarily, it is a little lighter, I think, than the stuff that I'm normally exposed to. And for that reason, maybe it's like not in the circles and in the bubble that I've kind of created. But it's a great book. I really do recommend it. And let me tell you about the story. So it's set in Mexico. This is obviously an Italian writer, but it's set in Mexico. And this baby is born Miguel. And Miguel is beautiful. So that's where the title comes from. But his beauty is like mystical beauty. Everyone stop in their tracks beauty. From the time he's a baby throughout his entire life, he will be defined by his beauty. And all of those who come into contact with him will be defined by their seeing and being in the presence of his beauty. And his family members, of which this story is largely about, will also be defined by Miguel's beauty. So there is many facets to that. It's not, I think you could understand that it is not as simple as he was beautiful, everything was wonderful, the end. Not at all. There is, of course, a darkness, and there are harsh lessons that he must learn about himself and the world and beauty, and that everyone around him must learn. And you can see how beauty can be a creator and a destroyer. The most interesting character through this, and I think most of our flow goes through him, is his older brother, Santiago. Santiago is wildly affected by the beauty, and at times is able to use Miguel's beauty to further himself, and at times Miguel's beauty quite literally can destroy him. And in the end, this is a book about brothers. Families generally, but really specifically brothers. I'm an older brother. My younger brother is 5 years younger than me, and we don't live close. We are not particularly close. I mean, when we see each other, there's so much love, and we'll hold each other tight, you know, but we just, I mean close as in we don't communicate a lot, you know. He is very introverted, very shy. Despite my book nerdness, I'm actually not. I'm actually pretty outgoing, and we've just kind of always been different. 5 years was a long time, sort of a big gap, but we always come back to each other. And this is something that I thought about my brother Brennan a lot as I was reading this book, because it is a story of brothers. Now, my brother is very good looking, but he does not have the mystical beauty of this. So that's where the comparison ends. But you know, the mother and the father are integral characters in this. So the mother is a very plain-looking woman, and the world and the townspeople, they want to steal away this baby. They want to take this beauty for themselves. And this is her son. The father is he sees much of Miguel in him. He's a good-looking man, doesn't have the mystical beauty, but he is kind of a showman, and you know, wants to put on parties, life of the party, great dancer, and he also wants to live off of Miguel's beauty, and he wants to use Miguel's beauty for his own purposes, as many people do. And then there is Miguel himself, who goes on his own journey, figuratively and literally, to understand himself and his beauty, and ultimately where he ends up finding that peace and that contentment. So in some ways, when you strip out the fantastical beauty aspect of it, this is really a family's coming of age story. You know, Miguel comes of age, Santiago comes of age, they're in a rural, poor town in Mexico. They are not in Mexico City. You know, that is like a whole nother world away. They're very sort of sheltered. You know, kind of a little similar to the book I reviewed last, right? The Two Lines Press book, Be Book and Me. And in many ways, it can be read just like that, sort of a family epic, you know, a tale of one little family. But one thing happens to this family, and that's that Miguel is born beautiful, and how that ripples and currents throughout. So I'm going to read 3 passages. Sorry, I keep looking back. I told you I'm filming someplace new, so I'll get the vibe of it. But page 25, just quickly to get a sense of Miguel as a baby, the effect his beauty has. So 25. Miguel who never cried, Miguel who always smiled, Miguel who had no incentive to do anything else because there was always someone to rock him to sleep, a lullaby in the background, sweet kisses and sweet smells in the air, long eyelashes that brushed against him, soft bosoms on which to lay his head. In the Moya's kitchen, he slipped into the arms of women like a flower into water, as they entered his house, gathered him up, and rocked him in concentric circles to help him sleep. By the time the sun went down, the baby had traveled dozens of miles without ever having left this kitchen, had breathed in dozens of different women. He was born to float on love. You knew it by the way he yielded to their embraces, how he repaid their smiles with his smile. So, some beautiful writing there, and again, the book is lyrical and beautiful. But you do get a sense that he is, especially as a baby, he's wafting in this glow that he's creating. Excuse me, I've got some Nicorette gum that's like trying to bounce around. I know that's like way too much information, more than you need. So that's a good example, and there are just big, heavy sections in this book that are lyrical prose dealing with how his beauty affects the world. Let's go to how his beauty affects others as a young adult. So now we're going to imagine him about 20 or so, something like that. Page 143. This is the passion that it's going to spur on others. And this is some of my favorite writing, this quick section here. She pointed the camera, and through the lens, Miguel looked depleted yet alive. No air in his lungs, nor spit in his throat, yet gilded with a hardened beauty. She took aim, pressed the shutter button, and stole his soul. Then she led him to the jungle, where she'd hidden some food. She plied him with milk, bread, and fruit, and stayed by his side until Miguel recovered his strength. As she watched him eat in silence, she was already, unwittingly, conquered. Prone on the bare ground, already begging, already pure emotion and nothing else, nothing but nails digging into Miguel's back. Before sundown, that body, born, raised, and suckled for years hundreds of miles from Merida, found her sense of purpose in the stretch of grass on which she lay under Miguel's firm pressure. It was a kind of waiting, the preparation she'd needed before dying in the arms of this Mexican boy. So that intensity, that young woman who's just met him, that she's feeling is just so well written. And I really love that idea of her already conquered, already begging. And I think there's a tendency, right, to look at it in terms of like maybe putting down those male and female that are so taken by his beauty, thinking of beauty as sort of a superficial thing, and yet here it is like making everyone crazy. But you just have to kind of trust me that the way this is written, yes, it is beauty and is described as beauty, but it is much more of a mythical and mystical quality. So the beauty is, it's representative, it's all encompassing, and it's something that we all, I think, have experienced and felt. It's just Miguel is kind of a vehicle for this in this, but it's not like, oh, he's so good looking and so handsome that everyone just like caves to his whims. I don't really know how to describe it to basically make it not seem sexist in parts, because I think that there are a way that you could read that and maybe think like, oh, what a male fantasy, like, to be so, but everyone, and including Miguel, is affected in different ways, but also positively and negatively by that beauty. And about midway through, I started to think of that beauty as a kind of youth, maybe youth personified, that cusp on the cliff right before when all possibility and freedom is open, but like that 1 second where you realize that you are free, and the valley just sort of opens up in front of you, and the fields are full with flowers, and there's paths everywhere for you to take. That feeling is the beauty, and it's fleeting for all of us. Miguel just has this thing throughout his life, and I'm taking a lot of liberties there with that analogy. I'll tell you right now, I'm not sure the author would agree with any of that, but it's a way that I sort of envisioned and thought about beauty, because at times, I will say, reading it, like, I wanted to step back away from the superficial, like, he's so hot kind of thing, and that personally helped me. The last section I'm going to read is page 141, and I just thought, as book nerds, you might like this one. So the older brother, obviously he's in his younger brother's shadow, right, Santiago, and I talked a little bit about that. And this is primarily, I think, his story. And I'm not going to give much away, as I always do, or don't rather. I'm not going to give much away about how the story progresses. But there is a girl in town who is taken by Santiago, not Miguel, which I have to say is extremely rare, as you'll see throughout this book. And what happens is Santiago goes through a phase of reading. He goes to this small little bookshop, and he picks up, he just, like, any book, and the book proprietor, I think it's like Flowers, Books, Gifts, that kind of shop, will just kind of hand him a new classic, and he'll go sit on the bench in the town square, and he'll read and read and read. And he's doing this while Miguel is off on his travels, away from Merida, the town, and he doesn't know where Miguel is, but he thinks he'll find him in the books, because the books can take him to all these places, right? Sound familiar? That he can't physically go. And so two things about that. One, that's why I read the world. That's why this channel, right? So that we can go places. And two, no better time than right now, right? When we're all social distancing and self-isolation, or isolation with our family. No better time to leave this world through words. But anyway, so Soledad, I think is her name. Yeah, Soledad. She wants to get his attention, but Santiago can't believe that anyone would ever think of him as someone worthy of love. So all the little times throughout childhood that she's tried, because they've been schoolmates forever, it's just never worked. He just doesn't trust it, doesn't trust himself. But now what she does is she sees the book he's reading. She goes to the library and she gets the same book, and she starts catching up furiously. She stays up all night reading to catch up this book. And now we'll pick up right there at 141. Give this little section, and you'll get a good sense of how this romance begins. That was how Santiago met Soledad, in the pages of a book, like characters in a story somebody had made up. They talked for hours, discussed its every detail, compared which emotions and scenes had won them over. Santiago still had a few pages to go, so they read them together, studied the end, retraced the route that had brought them line by line to where they were now. And there's a lot more, but I just wanted to give that little bit. So this is how their romance blossoms, through sharing books and talking about books. And Santiago does it in order to try to find his brother, to try to find the world outside that his brother's now experiencing. And Soledad uses books to try to have Santiago's heart, and to try to show him that I love you. And so some of the stories they read together, Santiago will miss cues and miss things where she might be offering some literary criticism that is more so, in fact, just her own feelings disguised as literary criticism. And that's great, because 90% of literary criticism is our own feelings. Designed? Why do I keep trying to say designed? 90% of literary criticism is our own feelings that we are pining off as literary criticism. And yes, I do realize that I have lost the word twice. This is probably what's going to happen with the late recordings, but I'm terrible at editing, so this is what you get. I love beautiful. Once again, Massimo Cuomo, translated from the Italian by Will Schutt, Europa Editions. Yeah, not something I would normally read. So thanks to whoever it was that wrote that preview. Agnes, if it was you, tell me, or someone tell me where I might have found it. I don't think it was Knowledge Lost, because I don't recall that he did a looking forward to 2020. He puts out a great newsletter, Translated Lit, or he's one of the people that does, and that'll show you like next month everything coming out. Invaluable resource. But anyway, I don't know where I got it from, but that was great. My next review, can you see by the cover which press we're going back to? The President's Room by Ricardo Romero, translated by Charlotte Combe, and this is Charco Press, as you can see from the beautiful and weird cover. Really, really slim volume, but I'm excited about talking about this. I've got a lot of thoughts kind of bursting, and so that'll be next. I've ended every one of my videos the same way. I try to say thanks and be good to folks. Please, please be good to folks.